So, significant and critical accounting policies are described in the bound audited financial statements that you have. There were no significant changes during the year. And on the next couple of slides, we just list some of the more significant policies. Budget preparation, adopting a balanced budget and complying with law, reviewing your actual spending periodically against that budget, the whole budget amendment process, grant and contract compliance, tracking projects accurately, both on the expense side. We're gonna look at your disbursements to vendors and contractors to verify that it's in compliance with grant agreements, contracts, laws, regulations. Your procurement policy, deposits and investments. Over on page 4, accounts receivable, looking at those and the collectability. As I said, there is a reserve for doubtful accounts. Capital assets, capitalizing property and equipment and large capital projects. And then also the pension. Madison's part of the Florida retirement system and estimating that liability. Over on page 5, we had no disagreements with management, no difficulties encountered during our audit. And of course, had we had any disagreements or difficulties, you would have heard about those prior to now. There were no uncorrected journal entries that needed to be, that were not posted. And then finally, management representations. Before we can release the final audit, there's certain representations that we get from management, and we got that in the letter March 15, 2019, and then subsequent to that, released the audit. Page 6, in terms of audit reporting, there's 4 areas. First is the financial statements. That's the main objective of our audit, is to express an opinion on the account balances, and again, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion. We evaluate internal controls. Again, overall in good shape. We have one comment that we're gonna make in just a second. When the county spends more than $750,000 in federal or state grant dollars, we perform additional testing. We had no findings or question calls there. And that's primarily gonna be the Department of Transportation money that comes into the county for road construction. And then finally, management letter comments and other findings. Throughout our audit, if we see something, an improvement that can be made or an enhancement to internal controls, we point that out to management. That happens throughout the audit, and then we have an exit meeting at the conclusion of our audit, and we present ideas or suggestions then also. Page 7, and without getting into too much detail, just a summary of the statement of net position. And this is a roll-up of all the funds within the county, including the constitutional officers. And the main thing here is, if you look at the top section, the asset portion of your statement of net position, the 4th line down, that subtotal, you can see that your total assets have very little change. Down in the liability section, a couple things to point out. Accounts payable and other liabilities, you can see that it was $2.2 million in 2017. In 2018, $1.2 million. In 2017, there were a lot of, with the road projects, there were bills that were payments that were owed to contractors that were paid subsequent to year end. And so in 2018, you didn't have that same level of payable on the books. A lot of this is just a snapshot, so there's timing of when bills get paid. Moving down, you can see the DEP revolving loan payable, that went down by a couple $100,000. And then the road construction loan in 2017, there was a balance of $916,000. In 2018, there was zero balance. So in total, your liabilities were down $1.6 million in 2018. Your assets less your liabilities, the bold line down at the bottom, you can see total net assets, and you can see that from 2017 to 2018, that balance increased by $706,000. Page 8 and 9, there's several factors or parameters that we monitor year after year, and we just pulled a couple out. Cash and investments is this first slide, and it's basically a 6-year comparison, and you can see in 2018 that cash and investments there was a spike. The important thing to know though is that, again, this is a snapshot, and this is as of September 30th. On October 1st, you may have paid a large bill, and so that balance can fluctuate. But the important thing is, if you look at that blue line, you can see that it is trending upward, which is a good sign. And then page 9 is long-term debt. And again, it's over a 6-year period. And this too can fluctuate from year to year, but the important thing to show here is that it is trending down. If you look at that blue line, there's definitely a downward trend. Page 10 is the statement of activities, or the income statement. The main item to point out in the revenue section at the top is with capital and operating grants. That second line there, you can see in 2017 there was just a lot more grant and contract related activity with the Department of Transportation, road projects. There's a lot more of that in 2017 than 2018. And so that's the main item there to point out. And then down in the expense section, you can see that total expenses actually went down by about $140,000. But for the most part, when you're talking about $24 million in total expenses, I mean, that's less than a 0.5%. I mean, it's not, there's very little change there. Page 11 is just a graph of ad valorem taxes, and over a 6-year period. Of course, the millage rate at 10, and so the increase you see there is just property values and a function of the market. And then finally, on page 12, as I mentioned, there was one finding and recommendation that we did have, and it's related to EMS accounts receivable. In the past, we've reported our recommendation was more on the side of having a sound reconciliation process that's performed in a timely manner from month to month. We feel like that's been addressed. There is a good faith effort being made to reconcile this EMS balance. But as a second step, we feel that the finance department, Katrina and her team, meeting with the outside service provider that does the billing and collections for EMS, if they could get together and work on, because you're basically taking the finance department and the accounting system and their system that they have and reconciling the two systems together, and there's differences. And so our recommendation here is to get with that company and try to resolve those differences on an ongoing basis. And so, and we offered our assistance if needed, but that really is the only finding that we had. Like I said, everything else was in good order. And I would like to thank Billy, Katrina, and the whole team for responding to our requests in a timely manner and getting us everything that we needed to get our audit completed. And so at this point, I can answer any questions that you may have on the audit. Do you have any?
Any questions, Commissioner? Looks very good, Mr. Keller. We appreciate your hard work on this, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say, John and Eric and all the folks that come from Lanny, they're great to work with. I just want to reiterate that, you know, I have no issues working with them. And, I also want to point out, Katrina does a good job in my office. And
Oh, absolutely.
she's quiet, doesn't like to say a lot of things, and she's sitting there, but I want her
Yeah,
to,
but-
she does a good job, and she's responsible for a lot of this, her and Alicia at the sheriff's
Yeah,
office.
those two right there are the glue that holds it together.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, we will move on down to new business, discussion regarding the fees of Cherry Lake, parking, the beach park and leasing facility. I know we've had some thoughts and discussions, anybody want to air some?
I know at our last commission that we talked about, you know, we changes we done, and we had indicated that with our fee structure we had, we was going to readdress it, especially we found out that we could charge, out-of-state fees, so that's why I think we need to get moving on that, this, because summer's coming,
Yes, it is.
it's gonna be busy.
And we opened up, Memorial Day, is that correct?
So, yeah,
It's
if y'all, if y'all wanna change something, you need to tell me what change, I can get the ordinance prepared and advertised.
Well,
I just sure had covered the ordinance with us, but.
I think the ordinance needs to definitely up the fees of the Georgia residents.
Out of state.
Out of state, well, yes, it should say out of state, not Georgia. Correct.
I agree. We go out of state, we pay a user fee that's different, and we need to help our residents, they're paying taxes and supporting, so I think we need to look at that.
I'm sorry, I don't know what our current fees are for the boat ramp or the use of swimming fee and all that. Do you know what they are?